Well, I've tracked down Kevin Davidson, who is the Vice President of Development here at Memorial Care. And boy, has he been running around doing a great job. Thank you for joining us and jumping out of line there.
Thank you. It really takes a team.
Well, yes, and there's an awful lot of people here, volunteers, like you said, from Memorial Care, as well as people from Laguna Wood Village. But tell us what's happening today.
Well, we're vaccinating as many residents as we can who are over the age of 75 who have scheduled appointments.
Okay, perfect. And approximately how many doses are given this weekend?
Well, we're going to do about 600 today, and hopefully between tomorrow and the next day, probably another 2,000 or so.
Now, I noticed there's an awful lot of people who are monitoring the situation, making sure rooms aren't too crowded. Tell me how that's working.
Well, I think it's working well. You know, last weekend we had a little bit of line backup and some challenges moving our flow through, but we made a lot of improvements over the week, and it seems to be moving quite smoothly today.
Okay, great. And then you said that people are monitoring at the door as well as other things. I mean, obviously sanitization is an important thing.
Absolutely. We have quite a number of volunteers here who are helping to monitor everything from making sure we have folks coming in with scheduled appointments, that we have surfaces sanitized, that pens and clipboards and all of that are getting wiped down after every use, and then making sure that the residents are moving safely through the line, as well as when we get them back into the vaccination area, making sure they're getting to registration okay, getting their vaccine, and then coming back into the observation area for the appropriate amount of time.
Okay, now the room that we're in now is called Station 1. Can you just quickly walk me through the process, what they'll do once they get there?
Absolutely. Here at Station 1, we're just checking paperwork. We're making sure that all the information that's on the form is accurate and completely filled out, and then we're also making sure we have the lot number for the vaccine that they're going to be getting today, so that we can track that through the process.
Okay, great. And then there's separate rooms for, this is obviously the registration, then they go to another room and that's where they get their vaccines?
Absolutely, yeah. So they'll stand in a short line and we'll work them in as we have registration clerks available. Those registration clerks will get them entered into our EMR and make sure that they're scheduled for their second vaccination. That was an added step. We weren't doing that last week. We do have a way to get those folks back in, but this time we're actually having people leave with scheduled second dose appointments, which I think is giving them a lot of comfort. And then they'll get their vaccine and work their way back into this observation area so that we can make sure they're monitored by a physician or a nurse practitioner or a nurse clinician.
Well-oiled machine.
Absolutely.
Now, I understand that there is now a no appointment line. Tell me what that is.
Well, thanks for asking. You know, we've been monitoring very closely the number of no-shows that we have in our appointment schedule. And one of the things we're really focused on is to make sure we've used every dose that we've taken out of the freezer. We can't put it back, and we really need to make sure that every dose of vaccine is utilized through the day. So if we start to see that there's a high no-show rate, we are trying to allow some walk-ins to be able to fill those out. It's not guaranteed, and depending on the day, we may not have that no-show rate, but we are doing our best to make sure that every arm gets a dose that we have, and that every dose gets used by the end of the day. And I know that's a little different than what Dr. Solomon and the Laguna Woods community talked about, but here on the ground we're really trying to make sure we're maximizing the use of every possible dose. And fortunately we've had to be flexible, and we have a team that's prepared to handle that.
All right, well, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And now we're going to go find some residents and see how they feel about getting their vaccination, or maybe prior to getting the vaccination. So stay with us.